Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Crochet YouTube channel and Facebook page. My name is Katelyn. In case you don't know, I am the WeCrochet Editor and Marketing Manager here, and I get to be like your little host chat buddy here every Wednesday. We did skip last Wednesday, but we're back and we have a full month of great guests to share with you and some new projects and new things, and yay, we're so excited. I do have a guest with me today that we're going to bring in just a minute. Her and I go back, I don't know, like 3-4 years now that we've known each other. And so it's kind of cool that in my previous job, I got to meet her and start this relationship. And now that I'm over here with WeCrochet, I get to continue that relationship and continue to bring you guys some really great things. So come on in, say hello, tell us where you're from, what you're working on. I hope you're excited to get to hear a little bit more. Wow, that was a tongue twister today. About my friend Dawn. So yeah, we are excited to share. So good morning, Heather and Chris and Gretchen and Margaret. Good evening, Margaret. I forget you're in a way different time zone over there. But that's okay. We are so happy to still have you here and chatting with us. We are always so excited. Okay, so we really don't have a lot of news to share. We're starting out the new year. Things are coming. January was a little bit, we still have the dots hooks in January, which was whoa. But February, we're starting off a little slow. Right now, we do have our mystery bags that we just launched on the website. So you can grab one of our tote bags filled with yarn. They're like a $60, $65 value for only $39.99. It's amazing. You'll get a surprise. You pick the fiber content that you want, so you're not getting something you don't want, but you'll get a fiber content, you'll get the bag, and you'll get a pin, and you're going to just have a lot of fun trying out some new yarn. So we put those all together. There are limited quantities of them, so if you want them, go and grab them. And then depending on how they sell out and everything, we might bring them back, but they might be a little bit different if we need to in the future. So go ahead and check those out. Jen just put that link in there. So Chris says, okay, so Chris, hold on to your comment. I'll bring it back in. Let's bring our guest in, and then I'll share the comment, and we'll start to explain why it all makes sense and everything. So, okay, here we go. Here is Dawn. Hi, Dawn.
Hey.
Dawn is the person behind Twice Sheared Sheep. If you don't know what Twice Sheared Sheep is, you're going to want to check it out. It's really phenomenal knitting and crochet tools and notions that you're going to need for all of your projects. And if you're like, that name kind of sounds familiar, but I don't really know, that's because you probably saw her in our WeCollaborate. She was our December, I guess it was, our December collaboration. And so we're going to talk about all of that. But before we dive into that, let's just take a step back and let's just talk about you, Dawn. So give us a little bit of your history of the fiber industry, how you decided to come up with this business. Can you give us a little background on all of that?
Absolutely. You're like making my day here, Katelyn. You're so bubbly and happy and wonderful. And I'm like, this is great. So Twice Sheared Sheep, I started out, honestly, when I was a new knitter. I had been crocheting since I was probably about 12. I think my first project was a pair of slippers. My first crochet project was a pair of slippers. But when I came back to the knitting and crocheting and fiber world as an adult, I had 2 young children, really like babies, and I tried other handicraft things. I tried quilting, but having a lot of little pieces out everywhere was not great for toddlers.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
But I needed something to do with my hands. And I've always been a crafty person. And so, but I was also very poor. And so I started out, I found a tutorial online on how to unravel thrift store sweaters for yarn.
Yes.
And so I unraveled a sweater and I hated every minute of it. It was tedious and obnoxious. But as all things do, pretty soon I was looking at the other sweaters that I had bought and I'm like, I could do this again. And so then I had more yarn than I could personally use. And I decided to sell it on eBay. This was before Etsy existed. This is before. And so we started out selling recycled yarn, thus our name, Twice Sheared Sheep. But
That makes so much sense. I don't know if I ever knew that, or if I did, like, I don't know, I kind of forgot about it, but
you're
that is
like, why did you pick
amazing.
this tongue twister of a name? Why? But as all things do in the fiber world, eventually things fall down a rabbit hole. So, I started out crocheting when I was very young. I learned how to knit, then I learned how to spin, and then when I started selling yarn, then I designed some patterns, and then I thought, oh, well, I could make these little notions to go with it. I made some cute stitch markers, and I made our first row counters, and I honestly, I loved making those so much more than I enjoyed unraveling sweaters. And it wasn't nearly as tedious. And so our business really did kind of shift in that direction. And one of the things that I love about selling and creating the notions rather than yarn is that it really does give me an opportunity to help crocheters and help knitters have less frustration in their craft.
Yes.
Because we all know that knitting and crochet should be fun. It shouldn't be frustrating.
Should be.
It should be. We all have those moments where we've ripped it out a dozen times already, and we just want to chuck it across the room or throw it
Right.
into a bag, and it's in timeout, and it's not allowed to speak to us for a week or more.
That's
you
yes.
know we all have those moments, but I found that if I used good tools instead of saying, oh, I can make do, and I can, oh, I don't need to use a stitch marker. Oh, I don't need a row counter to keep track of my rounds as I'm, doing something that doesn't have an end necessarily. You just keep going around, and you're like, wait a second, how many rounds around this did I go? That if you're using something that allows you to easily keep track of those things, then you don't end up ripping out as much, and you get to spend more time creating things, and you get to spend more time finishing things than you do ripping things out. And while I tend to be a process crafter, I enjoy the feel of the yarn in my hands. I enjoy just sometimes sitting down and being able to just make my hands move and do stuff and not have to think so much. I do like to actually finish things.
Yes.
Sometimes if the yarn is really lovely, you're like, oh, darn, I have to rip out 2 rounds. That just means I get to play with it a little bit longer. But most of the time, most of us don't really enjoy redoing the same thing over and over again.
Right.
And so that's a lot of what I really enjoy about designing tools is that well-designed tools really do help you be able to have kind of that safety net under what you're doing, because we're all capable of being able to work a complicated pattern or whatever, but it requires a lot of brain power. And sometimes we either don't want to expend that much brain power, or we just, it's been a long day and we want to sit down with our yarn, and we just don't have that much brain power to be able to expend. And that's when it becomes frustrating. And I don't want it to be that way. So
no, and your tools are perfect for making it less frustrating. Like when I found, so I'll be honest, I think I've said this before, but I'm both a knitter and crocheter. Crochet is kind of like my big wheelhouse. It's where my go-to is, but I enjoy knitting as well. And so I usually have like 1 knit project and like 3 crochet projects going all at the same time. And so I honestly found you through knitting because I was so frustrated with counting my rows because I'd always forget to write another tally mark down. And that's when I came across your row counters, which were phenomenal. And then I was turned on to your stitch markers, which were also so amazing. And maybe we could just take a minute here to kind of talk about that. So part of the WeCollaborate was getting this beautiful tin right here, which we should say that Dawn does the artwork for the tins. I think all of them now, right?
I do. Yeah, I'm a watercolor artist sort of as a side gig. I always wanted to be a fine artist, and that's how I get to be a fine artist is I paint the art that goes on the tins.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So you can get your tin, and then inside for our WeCollaborate, you got 6 of these stitch markers, and they're called the Melody Clip stitch markers. And what's so great about these is, so these are designed for crocheters. They're a locking stitch marker that doesn't really lock, because they have enough tension in this little wrap here at the top to hold it onto your stitches, and you're not going to lose it or anything else. But because you don't have to kind of like the plastic ones where you have to click it into the place so it doesn't come apart. These you can take on and off with one hand. And trust me, I know I've done it a million times, which makes it so great. Like I don't have to put everything down to take off a stitch marker, to move it. I can just pick it up with one hand and stick it in. The other thing I really love about these, so again, there is a knit stitch marker that you can get, but there's also these melody clips. I only get melody clips because you can still use these as knit stitch markers too, because you don't need to have a big loop. These are a loop enough that you can slide it right onto your knitting needles and it works in both places. So I just have one set of these in my Notions bag or tin or whatever I have in the project bag. It changes every time. But these are so great because I can use it for knit and crochet, even though they're more designed for crochet. So how did you come up with this? Like, how did you even come up with any of this stuff?
A lot of it comes from when you're playing with yarn all the time, you do find those little frustrations. Like you said, that you don't think it's a big deal to, clip the little, I call them the diaper pin, or the little, say,
Yes.
They look like a little diaper pin, that it doesn't feel like it should be a big deal to close it but when you're doing it over and over and over and over again, you find just that little bit of time that it takes to do that. You're like, I don't know if I want, and
I feel like it gets harder the more you do it because the plastic starts to not expand again as much. So it makes it harder, and you really need your two hands to get it into the stitch as you go along. So,
and it's just making things a little bit more effortless,
yes.
And it's the difference. It's the same thing with your tools as it is with when you choose to crochet with a really lovely yarn. You know the difference when you've got your backup yarn that maybe you've had for 10 years, or whatever, and it becomes your emergency yarn when you just really need something, versus when you're knitting or crocheting with your really good yarn.
Right.
It makes a difference in how you feel about the project. But the melody clips, I loved them because it was a one-handed process.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved that they were flexible enough that they could be on a needle, they could be on a single stitch, they could, in knitting, I feel like we need so many more tools in knitting than you do in crochet, which is one of the lovely things about crochet. But it can hold a stitch so it doesn't drop down. It can do all sorts of things. And I loved that about the flexibility of the style. And it really is just a matter of playing with the yarn and listening to what people tell me when they tell me that they have a problem or a frustration. I think half of the things that are in our shop right now are because I had one of our customers talk to us and say, "Hey, Dawn, I'm having this problem. Do you know how we can solve that?" And I'm like, "Yes, we can do this." And that's one of my favorite things. Yeah.
So I know you do the fine arts and you do the watercolor and you're a knitter and a crocheter. So I have to ask, because this will kind of go towards my other hobby I like to do. Did you have like jewelry making skills when you started out on all of this to start making things?
Yes and no. I mean, I think that like all teenage girls, I had made a pair of earrings or something at some point where, you go to Hobby Lobby and you buy some wire and some pliers, or, I never took a class or anything like that. It was just a matter of, I think like some of us do in crochet, where you just pick it up and you play with it and you see what you can do. I feel like, because of experience in other ways, that I'm pretty good at looking at something and being able to dissect it and take it apart and say, how should this work? But no, I didn't have a lot of jewelry making experience. Are you do you enjoy making jewelry? And
I do. It is another hobby of mine. I'll say another because there's a long list. But yeah, I love jewelry making and wire working and things like that. So that's also something that really drew me to this, is because everything is basically wire based.
Mhm.
And so it's super simple components, but they're put together in such a beautiful way. And you can get so many colors, so many charms, so many everything. I know. So the row counters that we've been talking about, those are more geared towards knitting. Not that you can't use them in crochet. You've done videos on how to use them. But so what kind of came first? Did you, because the melody clip was part of that row counter to help you keep like your tens place, so to speak.
Mhm.
So did you come up with the design there, or were you coming up with it for crochet first?
Legitimately, I'm not sure whether I actually think that I came up with the melody shape first as a stitch marker. And then I had people tell me that they weren't sure how can we count more than 10 rows? Because, this is
Mhm.
almost 2 decades ago now when I offered my first row counters. And so it was an experimentation process of me making something and me using it and then listening to feedback of what people said of what they needed. And so I think it really was I started out with a stitch marker, and I knew that we needed a removable stitch marker because
Mhm.
you need it in crochet, you need it in knitting, you need an ability to get it off of whatever it
Yeah.
is that you're doing. And that just worked so well to count the tens place. And honestly, even in my crochet right now, my big crochet project that I'm working on is I know it's a different company, but Annie's has this ad for that mandala Afghan that's all
Yes.
over Facebook. So I've been working on that, and
Oh my.
it's turning out gorgeous. But that I have to keep track of my rows. And so I
Right.
do. I used my little melody clip and I just clipped my chain row counter to the first
Yep.
stitch round. And because I find that, yes, if I set it down, if you're doing this big long round and you have to set it down halfway through,
Right.
you do. You come back and you're like, which round was I on? What was I doing here? And so, yeah, I don't know if it's my knitter brain, but I find that I use them everywhere.
Yeah, totally, totally. Margaret said, didn't you have a crochet or a wire crochet kit or cowl the other year, Katelyn? Yes, our very first We Collaborate was with Eula Design, and she makes these little starter things, and then you actually use wire and a super tiny steel hook to make components that you can put together in jewelry. It was so much fun. We did a ring. It was so cool.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I've
Yeah.
tried that before. That's hard.
It is, but it's so much fun, like, when you're done and everything, but,
Yeah.
there is a question for you. So Chris would like to know, does Dawn make all of the stitch markers and row counters?
So, the reality is I did used to make everything. Like everything was made with my two hands. But we've gotten big enough that I physically can't do that anymore. So we now have 8 employees for our company.
Wow.
And one of my biggest joys, honestly, is that almost everything in the shop is still made by hand, but it's made by lovely ladies who are here in my community. And they're my friends. And one of the blessings of this company was it was something that allowed me to be a stay at home mom for my kids.
Mhm.
And half of our employees are also stay at home moms for their kids. And
That's
so
awesome.
it gives us the flexibility for them to be able to work from home, and they make beautiful things for us. And I having a team that we all work together to make this is one of my very favorite things. I love it so much.
That is awesome. I love that. I mean, I would love to do something like that. I mean, not that I don't love my job. I love my job. I'm staying here, but if they would ever, like, say, "Hey, we're done with you," I'll be calling you up to say, "Hey."
Caitlin's like, do you have an at-home position?
No, but I think it's so great. I mean, that's the whole point. Well, maybe not the whole point, but that's how I believe this community is so wonderful, is because we take care of each other. We build these relationships with other people. We have these common interests, and then we can help support people who want to make an income, but it doesn't have to always be a full-time income. Or, they're supporting somebody who is doing the business as a full-time income, but then all these other crafters can be supported as well. Like, I love that so, so much.
Me too. I always say that yarn people are some of the kindest, most generous, wonderful people in the world. I mean,
Yes.
because you have to be, if you're going to spend, a month or more working on a project and then just give it away to somebody, which
Yeah.
we do all the time.
Yeah. So I want to, oh, thanks, Chris. Chris said, they'll never be done with you, Katelyn. You're too valuable. That's so sweet. um, I do want to say though, we do have a couple, not very many, but we have a couple sets of the stitch markers over in the WeCollaborate section. So we'll put a link in, or if you're on the homepage in the top navigation over on the right-hand side, it says Together We. And then if you go down in the drop down, you'll find WeCollaborate. And the product there is going to be something different. But if you click on the featured product for the month, you'll see the past products we still have. And so there's a couple of these left. You get the tin and you get a set of six stitch markers. They're all different colors. There are the crochet.com brand colors. Dawn was nice enough to work with us on these colors and get us something that really matched back to our brand. So these are exclusive. Like, you're only getting these through WeCrochet. So go ahead and grab them now while you're over there. And the tin too, she updated the colors of this beautiful sheep for us so that they would match our brand colors too. Isn't that just gorgeous? Like, she did that. She painted that and then put it on a sticker. I love it. Also, if you don't know, I'm just going to keep bragging here about Dawn because I love everything that she's doing. I know it's early, but please get it on your calendar. Dawn does an advent calendar box set, whatever you want to call it, every year. But they go on sale in the summer, right?
Mm-hmm. We're launching in June. Yeah.
In June. So make sure you're signing up for her emails. Make sure you're following on social media because that's when you'll find out first. I know the first time I saw it, I totally missed it because I was thinking, oh, advent calendars, they'll come out closer to the end of the year. No, a good advent calendar is, well, not good, but
the
advent calendars
usually
come out, a popular one, come out in the summertime so that the companies have enough time to make enough advent boxes. So it is a beautiful advent calendar. You'll get stitch markers, you'll get row counters, you'll even get exclusive things that aren't on the site. Like this year, I think it was the advent calendar, the sock ruler. That was absolutely amazing. So that was something they don't sell on their website, but it was in the advent box. So,
it is on the website now, but it's sold out.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yep. That's right here. Yeah.
So it is so awesome. So it's totally worth it. Even if you have some of the products, you're going to get a lot of great things, different sizes than what you might have. Be sure to check that out. We also want to talk quickly, or not quickly, but we want to mention that there are mystery boxes that are going out, right? They're mystery boxes because we don't know what's in them.
Yeah. So we have this year, because the Advent box was so popular, and we had people say, I want you to surprise me all year. So we did a surprise box club, and it came with 3 boxes, one sent in the spring, the summer, and the fall. So March, June, and September. And we opened that up for enrollment in December, with the intention of selling it all the way through March or whatever. And we sold out of our slots by January 1st, like completely sold out. And because we have to prep all, order supplies and order all the things for it, and it's really a labor of love, that we had to cap it there. But we're hoping for when we send out our March boxes, we're going to open up enrollment again for our summer and fall. So even if you missed out, you can get in for the last 2.
Yeah. So again, make sure you get the emails. Like, I get Dawn's emails and it always tells you when stuff is coming. Even sometimes get to know a little bit in advance that, hey, it's coming. So you definitely want to sign up there and follow on social media as well so you don't miss out. Margaret says, Dawn's stitch markers are stunning. Yes, you need one in every size. And again, there are different sizes for crochet and for knitting. So you can get, what is it, a small, medium, and large for the crochet ones?
You can get small, medium, large, and extra large. So generally, the small ones are very, very tiny. So unless you're doing a lot of filet crochet with the crochet cotton or things like that, you probably, the small ones are probably not going to be your bag. But we do go all the way up to an extra large, because if you're using super chunky yarn or things like that, and particularly for crochet when you've got the crochet stitch creates a larger knot than
Yes.
just a single thread of yarn, that you want something with a bigger loop to be able to fit over your needle or over your yarn.
Yeah. And if you got the ones that we have in the WeCollaborate, those are the large. So just so you can gauge, if you want a larger size, you could go up to the extra large. If you want something a little bit smaller for when you're using like fingering weight yarn, you could go smaller. I'll be honest, I brought this with me. I'm working on a project in fingering weight yarn, and I'm using my stitch marker right there too. So I mean, it still works perfectly well on thinner yarns if you get like the large size and whatever else. It just depends, I guess, on how much you want like flopping around, so to speak. But they work great. I love the large size. I love the large size for knitting and for crocheting stitch markers because they just seem to fit everything or your standard what you're doing. Obviously, if you're doing something with a larger yarn, you might want to change your mind, but the large is definitely my recommendation on what to start with if you don't have anything and you're looking to purchase just one set to start.
I absolutely concur. Yes.
Yeah. So there is a question. Margaret says, how do the knitting stitch markers look like? I should have brought mine over. They're over sitting on my desk. But basically, so you have your melody clip here, and then you've got your little dangle here on the bottom. They're basically like the little dangle, except that loop on the top is just bigger to fit over your knitting needles. So
the bead keeps sliding on me, but
yeah. So there you go. So
we call them our infinity ring. So it looks like an infinity symbol. And so, yeah, the loop at the top is just a little bit bigger to fit over your needle. So the dangle part on the larges is actually our size small. So the size of that loop is a size small. This one is a size medium, so it's a little bit bigger. Of course, the large would have the loop size that is the same as the hook size on the size large. Just to fit bigger needle sizes.
Right. And I mean, the great thing too is, so when you think about a knit stitch marker, you don't want it to be too thick, like width wise, because it could potentially distort your stitches and how much spacing. I love that about these stitch markers, that you really can get the extra large size and use it with small needles, because it's just going to kind of like stick above your needle, but it's not altering that width between your stitches. Like they're all the same width of stitch marker. I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to explain that well, but I don't know. But so you can get any size if you want. Bigger is better. It'll fill in more sizes. Large is my go-to. Check it out. Gretchen says, do they open and close? So the knit stitch markers, no, they just slide right onto your needles. And the crochet stitch markers do not open and close. They are, because of the way the wire is, it tensions itself. So the two round pieces at the bottom hold each other together, and you just kind of slip it right through your stitch, and you can slip it right back out. You don't have to clip anything or open anything. You just slip it right through. It is so perfect. It's so easy to use.
I always talk about it as like it's a pop. So you like that, you know, the yarn just kind of pops through that opening where the two sides meet, and it closes right up behind it. So you don't have to physically open and close it. It doesn't actually lock like a safety pin does, but the tension holds it closed, so that you can just pop it on. And then if you're ready to pull it, to get it off, you just pull, and the yarn will pop out through that gap.
And we should say, do not try to open it and close it, because that's not good for the wire. You won't be able to get it back into the same shape. And over time, if you're opening and closing it, it's going to weaken the wire and it could actually snap. So no opening and closing needed. Don't do it. Just pop it right onto your stitch and pop it right off. So
I can tell Katelyn handles wire and jewelry. Yes. Yeah. Don't break the wire.
Yeah, don't do that. You'll be very, very sad. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Just as a reminder to everybody, we have a few more of the WeCollaborate sets over on the WeCollaborate page on the crochet.com website. Go and sign up for the newsletters. You don't get a ton of newsletters, but you're going to want to have them so that you know when those surprise boxes reopen, and you'll know when the Advent box opens up, and you'll know when there's sales going on, when there's new sets coming out. is totally worth it to check it out. And sometimes there's even like patterns in there and lots of other fun things that are going on. So definitely go sign up for the email. Margaret says, that sounds like a dream if you don't need to open and close it yourself. It is. It is so easy to use. I love it. When did we get access to TSS through WeCrochet? Rose, I'm not sure what that means.
TSS is twice your cheap.
Right, but the access is only for, like, you can only purchase this one set on the WeCrochet website. The rest of anything that you want to get, a different size, a different tin, any kind of knitting accessories, you're going to have to go over to Twice Sheared Sheep's website to make those purchases, or to purchase the advent box or the surprise box when they open up. So, yeah. Was there anything else we forgot? I think we covered it all.
I think we did. This has been lovely. This is
I
the
know,
best
I'm
way
so
to spend
excited.
Wednesday morning.
I have to say, this is one of the things I love so much about this community is, like I said before, Dawn and I met years ago, maybe not years, but at least 4 years ago it's been. And now that I get to work with you again, like, this is just wonderful. I love getting to chat with you and talk to you. It's always so much fun.
It is lovely to chat with you too. Yes.
Well, I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, be sure to check out Twice Sheared Sheep. You will not be disappointed, I promise. And we will be back here next Wednesday, which I think is the 15th, if I remember correctly. And we have another guest on, so you'll want to check that out as well. So thank you so much, guys. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye.